Joining us now to discuss is Tim Doescher, Executive Director of Unleash Prosperity, and Javier Palomarez, Founder and CEO of the U.S. Hispanic Business Council. Thank you both so much for being here. Now, on the political level, each side is blaming the other for the shutdown. But what would a government shutdown mean for Americans? How do you see this ending? Tim, let's start with you.
Yeah, this is really a petulant pound sand moment for the Democrat Party right now in this country. They lost the election. They lost the House, the Senate, and the White House. One big, beautiful bill passed. They didn't have a say in that. They tried to scare people with the health care gambit during one big, beautiful bill. It didn't work for them. So now they're just going back to the same playbook. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries are going back to the same playbook, trying to scare people. And this is the thing that they're trying to say. We're fighting for $30 billion for those of the least of these who need the health care the most. The problem with that, though, is that's $30 billion going to people who already don't pay anything for health care. So where does the $30 billion go? It goes to the insurance companies. It's a bailout buyout to the insurance companies who donate to Democrats. So you got Democrats using this opportunity to claw back whatever control they have and put it on the American people, who are the ones that will be affected by this.
And Javier, your thoughts on how this would affect Americans?
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. We're a business association. We represent the interests of the American small business community. Look, government shutdowns. That's nothing new. We've been here before. Keep in mind, the last actual shutdown was back in 2018. Continuing resolutions we've used every single year since 1998. That's 27 years running. So a lot of this is really not surprising, but it is disappointing to the point that Tim made. We're playing politics here. At the end of the day, the American small business community, the American family are in the crossfire. We're looking for a resolution. From a small business perspective, a government shutdown would be a real impact to us. We're already dealing with the uncertainty of tariffs to a broad array of nations from where we get products or services. And so there's the associated increased costs on those products, the supply chain implications, particularly for things coming from China. So there's a lot of economic inputs and impacts that the American small business community is dealing with, coupled with a shrinking workforce and rising prices for everything from food to utilities to insurance, and the list goes on. So our hope is that we can get past the politics, do the right thing by the American small business community, the American family, and the American economy.
And speaking of a shrinking workforce, Tim, the Trump administration could lay off workers during a potential shutdown. Would continuing the president's push to downsize the federal government benefit Americans long term?
Well, look, I don't think that the American people are really happy with the size and scope, depth and breadth of Washington, D.C. So I think you're going to have a pretty easy argument saying that if there has to be some layoffs here because of the Democrat Party forcing the hand, then that's a consequence, I think, that most of the American people are willing to accept. Now, of course, no, it's never a good thing to lose a job or to be fired. But if you're playing politics with somebody's job, then there is going to be a consequence to that. And that's going to land squarely in the Democrats' lap. It's not like that they won the election and they have a mandate. No, we have the mandate. We are the ones. Our policies are the ones that won the election. Doge is the thing that's sweeping Washington, D.C. right now. And when you find something that doesn't make sense in the federal government, and you're able to eliminate that and send those people into the private sector where there are now 7.1 million open jobs. These are the small businesses that we're talking about here who need new employees, qualified employees to do these jobs. That's what we're talking about here. So go ahead, play politics all you want. But I think the American people are smart enough to understand that that's what this is. And if Washington, D.C. takes a sideline to this, I think that they're willing to see that.
And Javier, do you think Americans will benefit long term if the federal government is downsized?
I think that's hard to call. I think there's a ton of truth in what Tim has just articulated, there's no doubt that our government, in particularly in some agencies and departments, was bloated. It was time for a trim and a harsher look at who exactly and what exactly we had in terms of the workforce in the government. But at the end of the day, with what we've got to deal with literally tonight, you're looking at an environment where political division is at an all-time high. Republicans are calling Democrats deranged. Democrats are claiming that Republicans are unwilling to engage. Again, in the middle is the American family, is the American small business community. There's a dwindling chance for a simple and clean continuing resolution. A key point that Tim made is that Democrats want healthcare tax credits that will lower costs for some American families. In question is who exactly will benefit from those tax cuts. Republicans, on the other hand, are pushing for a very clean, continuing resolution to allow us to continue to move forward. Both sides have a good point. Our hope as the small business community that creates the majority of jobs in this nation, employs the majority of Americans, is that both sides will come together. You keep in mind that even if every Republican is aligned with where the party wants to go, they would still need, I believe, 7 or 8 Democrats to come across the aisle and vote with them to get what they want. So either way, there's going to have to be a meeting of the minds. Both parties are going to have to get courageous, reach across the aisle, and get past the politics and focus on the policy and the people. This is what we need them focused on right now. And my hope is that, our truer angels will come to bear and will do the right thing by, again, the American people.
And Tim, I want to take a step back here because the Congressional Research Service found that since fiscal year 1977, Congress has passed full appropriation bills by the September 30th deadline only 4 times. All other times needed short-term funding bills known as continuing resolutions. Given that, do lawmakers have enough time to debate, negotiate, and pass spending bills before the government shutdown deadline, or does something need to change?
Look, I think that Washington, D.C. has a fundamental sickness when it comes to the budget. 100%. No question about it. And I think Speaker Johnson actually said that today. He said, we need to get back to standard operating procedure here in Washington, D.C. in the appropriations process. That has to happen. The problem, though, is that when the process is used as a way of getting back at legitimately passed legislation, instead of taking care of what we need to do, which is just fund the government from what already has taken place, you start playing. That's what we mean by playing politics with it. You start adding all of these different things into it, your wish list, all the things that you want that you didn't get in the other round before. That's when things get muddy, and that's when things slow down in Washington, D.C., and you put the American people at risk here. And that's exactly what Speaker Johnson said. So you're right. Yeah, absolutely. We do need to get back to regular order. We do need to get back to passing a budget. How about that? We absolutely need to have that happen. But the problem, though, is the premise is completely off. And I understand what Javier is saying. We need to come together. But the problem, though, is with that is that you can't come together when the other side of the party is completely messing up the process that you've started with. So you just can't do it. So I disagree that we need to somehow meet them in the middle and give in to the spoiled brat that's claiming they want more dinner, more dessert, more dinner, more dessert when they've already had enough. And so I think it's time for the Republicans to take a stand. And I think it's time for them to let the consequences fall in the hands of the petulant the children that the Democrats are being right now with this process.
And Javier, I'll let you respond. And if you think, the way the government is funded needs to be changed.
I love Tim and his viewpoint. I don't disagree with it. But again, the reality of it is, if the Republicans do prove that point would be proven at the cost of the American family. And therein lies the challenge. Government contracts cease, they halt, the government comes to a stop, permits, inspections, everything stops. Ultimately, it's the American small business community that takes that hit. We don't have the resources. We don't have, the inventories. We don't have the wherewithal. And so it does sound Pollyannish, but my hope again is that we will come together and do the right thing by the American people. I don't disagree with Tim, but it is clear in his mind and mine as well that ultimately it's the American family and the American small business community that will take the impact of this government shutdown should it happen.
Well, Javier Palomarez, Tim Doescher, thank you both so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Great evening.